The day the sky burned. The sky of Carvos split open with fire. The invasion came without warning. One moment, the people of the green world were tending their crystal farms and weaving their songs into the air. The next, the heavens turned red, and massive warships eclipsed their twin suns. Every child of Carvos knew those ships. They belonged to the Velari Dominion, the most feared empire in the Orion Arm. The Dominion did not conquer, they consumed. Planets were stripped of their culture, their resources, their people. Those who resisted were erased. Those who yielded became slaves. The High Speaker of Carvos had told his people not to fight. "We are but one world," he said. "The Dominion is countless. Better to bend than to break." But when the first city burned, when plasma fire rained upon their sacred gardens, when the Dominion soldiers marched through the streets and tore families apart, many began to whisper, perhaps bending was only another form of breaking. And in the chaos, one strange figure moved among them. He was not Velari. He was not Carvosi. His skin was pale, scarred. His eyes were sharp, restless, always scanning. He carried no song crystals, no glowing threads, only metal tools, wires, and strange devices that hummed with hidden power. His name was Marcus Holly. Once a soldier of Earth, now an exile, a wanderer, the Carvosi had found him years ago, half dead after his shuttle crashed beyond the crystal deserts. They had healed him, given him shelter, taught him their ways. He had lived among them quietly, always distant, a shadow in their bright, singing culture dot until the day the sky burned. Marcus stood at the edge of a burning village, smoke stinging his lungs, watching Velari troopers march in precise, merciless formation. Their armor shimmered like black glass. Their rifles cut down anyone who moved too slowly. Beside him, trembling, was Sarai, a young Carvosi woman with eyes like liquid silver. She had once been a singer-priestess. Her voice used to calm storms and heal wounds. Now her hands clutched a shard of crystal, as if it were a knife. "They will take us all," Sarai whispered, her voice breaking. "The speaker told us to surrender. He thinks mercy exists in them, but they only know hunger." Marcus's jaw tightened. "That's how they win. Fear. Obedience. Once you kneel, you'll never stand again." "You speak as if you have faced them before." His silence was answer enough. The Velari weren't just another empire. They were the empire. For decades, Earth had fought them in distant sectors, skirmishes hidden from most human civilians. And Marcus had been there. He had seen entire colonies erased. He had fought in the ruins. He had bled under their flag, and he had run. Now, looking at Sarai's trembling hands, he felt the weight of every failure, every life lost, every comrade he had left behind. The Velari commander's voice boomed through the burning air, amplified by his armor. "People of Carvos, submit, and you will be spared. Resist, and you will be erased from history." The Carvosi around Marcus looked to the ground, broken, but Sarai looked at him. Only him. "What do humans do?" she asked quietly, when told to kneel. Marcus's lips curled into something dark, something dangerous. "They get back up." The words lit something inside her, something desperate, fragile, but real. A shout rang out. A Velari trooper had spotted them. Marcus grabbed Sarai's arm. "Run!" Plasma bolts tore the air around them as they fled through the shattered alleys, weaving between burning crystal towers. Marcus pulled a small device from his belt, a blocky, ugly thing compared to Carvosi elegance. He slammed it against a wall. A sharp pulse of static burst out, scrambling Velari sensors for a brief second. Sarai gasped. "What was that?" "Human trick," Marcus said. "Won't hold them for long." They ducked into the ruins of a temple, its once singing crystals cracked and blackened. Sarai's chest heaved as she pressed against the wall, fear in her. Silver eyes. You? You carry weapons, tools, knowledge. You could fight them. Marcus shook his head. Not alone. They'll crush me. Crush all of us. Then teach us. Her voice was fierce now, sharp with desperation. You say they cannot be stopped. But you still stand. Show us how. Show us to fight. He looked at her. Really looked. The Carvosi were singers, healers, dreamers, not soldiers. To teach them war was to shatter them, to drag them into the same darkness that haunted him. But he also remembered Earth, remembered what happened to colonies that trusted Velari mercy. If the Carvosi yielded, they would be broken anyway. Marcus's hands tightened into fists. All right, he said. But if we fight, we don't fight to survive. Sarai's breath caught. Then for what? Marcus's eyes burned with something the Velari could never understand. To win. And in that moment, in the ashes of surrender, the first spark of rebellion was born. Part 1 ends with Marcus agreeing to teach the Carvosi how to fight, setting the stage for humanity's brutal defiance. The cliffhanger. A peaceful people about to be reshaped by war. Asterisk. Fire in the crystals. The training began in secret. The Carvosi were not warriors. Their songs shaped the wind. Their crystals shaped their homes. Their lives were harmony, not violence. To turn that into war was like asking a river to burn. But Marcus was relentless dot in the abandoned caverns. Beneath the shattered temple, he drilled them. He showed them how to move silently, how to strike quickly, how to melt away before the enemy could react. Forget honor, he told them. Forget tradition. If you fight the Velari on their terms, you'll die. So we fight dirty. We fight smart. The Carvosi stared at him, disturbed, uneasy. To them, combat had always been ritualistic, a clash of strength and skill under the eyes of their sons. Marcus crushed that illusion with every word. War isn't fair. War isn't a song. It's teeth in the dark. Sarai was the first to adapt. She listened, learned, repeated his commands until her voice cut through the others with certainty. When the others faltered, she pushed them. When Marcus's drills left them gasping, she steadied them with quiet words. You must understand, Sarai told her people, this is not the end of our harmony. It is its shield. If we do not fight, our voices will be silenced forever. But even she struggled. On the third night, Marcus handed her a weapon, a human-made plasma pistol, scarred and battered from a dozen battles. She held it in her delicate hands as if it were poison. This kills, she whispered. Yes, Marcus said, and so do they. The only difference is when you pull the trigger, your people live another day. She raised the weapon, aimed at a broken crystal shard set on a rock, and fired. The blast seared through it, shattering it to dust. The cavern went silent. Something had changed in Sarai's eyes. Fear was still there, but behind it, resolve. The first strike came a week later. A Velari patrol marched through the crystal fields, scanning for rebels. Their armor glistened black under the twin suns, their rifles glowing with power. Asterisk, they didn't see the Carvosi in the trees dot at Marcus's signal. A series of crude but effective mines built from stolen Velari tech and Carvosi crystal amplifiers detonated under the patrol. Fire and shards ripped through the formation. The survivors staggered, disoriented, before arrows tipped with explosive crystal shards rained down from above. The battle was over in less than a minute. Sarai stood over a fallen Velari, her chest heaving, the plasma pistol trembling in her hand. The alien's black glass visor reflected her silver eyes. She fired once. The body fell still. The others looked to Marcus, wide-eyed, half in terror, half in awe. You wanted to know what humans do when they're told to kneel. Marcus sighed. His voice was low, steady. This is what we do. The rebellion spread like fire in dry grass. Whispers moved faster than Velari patrols. Villagers who once cowered now hid weapons beneath their floors. Farmers rigged their fields with explosives. Children carried messages through the forests. The Dominion's commanders grew frustrated. Carvos was supposed to be a simple conquest, a jewel added to their empire. Instead, they found themselves bleeding in the shadows, caught by an enemy they could not see. And always, the name was whispered. Human. The Velari knew of Earth. They had fought humans before, but only at the edges of space, in forgotten wars. They had believed humanity weak, fractured, easy to erase. Now on Carvos, they faced something else. A phantom teaching primitives how to wage war like predators. The Dominion increased its presence. Entire platoons marched through the forests. Heavy walkers burned the crystal fields. Gunships scoured villages. The Carvosi paid in blood. One night, Marcus returned to the caverns with his face streaked in ash, carrying a wounded child in his arms. The Velari had torched another settlement. The survivors were few. Marcus sat by the fire, silent, as Shirai cleaned the child's burns with trembling hands. "You are teaching us to kill," she whispered, not looking at him. "But can you teach us to survive this?" Marcus didn't answer. His jaw was clenched so tight it hurt. He had seen this before. He had lived this before. He knew where it ended. If Earth had taught him anything, it was this: the Velari never stopped. Not until they were broken, and Earth had broken them. He looked at Sarai, at the child, at the hollow-eyed rebels who now followed his every word. He had tried to run from war, to hide on this peaceful world. But war had found him, and this time he wouldn't run. A week later, everything changed. The Velari struck harder than ever, unleashing weapons the Carvosi had never seen. Orbital bombardments lit the horizon, turning forests to ash. Villages crumbled under the blast of seismic cannons. Thousands died in days. Marcus realized something chilling. This wasn't just punishment. This was preparation. The Velari weren't merely crushing resistance. They were gathering forces for a final strike, one that would wipe Carvos clean, leaving nothing. Alive. He gathered Sarai and the others in the cavern, his voice sharp and grim. "They're done playing. They're going to burn this world down to ash." The rebels murmured in fear. Some wanted to flee, to scatter into the deep forests. Others wanted to surrender, praying for mercy. Sarai silenced them with a raised hand. Her silver eyes locked on Marcus. "Then we must stop them," she said. Marcus's lips twisted into a grim smile. "There's only one way to do that." He pulled out a tattered datapad, its screen flickering with blue light. Maps, star charts. Velari fleet positions. And in the center, a symbol that Carvosi didn't understand, but Marcus did. A ship. Not Velari. Not Carvosi. Human. Hidden. Buried. Forgotten. He looked up at them, eyes burning. "If we want to live, we have to wake the Titan." The Titan sleeps. The cavern fell silent. The rebels stared at the flickering image on Marcus's datapad. The shape of the ship was alien to them, jagged, angular, without the flowing grace of Carvosi designs or the cold symmetry of Velari warcraft. It looked brutal. Predatory. Serai was the first to speak. "What is it?" Marcus's voice was quiet, almost reverent. "A Titan-class dreadnought. Earth's answer to the Velari Dominion." A ripple of shock ran through the group. Even the word dreadnought carried weight. Sarai's brow furrowed. "You said humans were few, scattered. How could they build something like this?" "Because we had to." Marcus's jaw tightened. "Every time the Velari thought we would yield, we built bigger guns, stronger ships. And when they burned our colonies, we gave them hell in return." His eyes lingered on the hologram. This one, the Vanguard. She was here during the last war. She was hit, crippled, forced down into Carvos's mountains. Most of the crew never made it. The Velari thought she was gone. And you knew? Sarai's voice trembled, half accusation, half awe. I knew. He met her gaze, unflinching. But I wasn't ready to open that tomb. Not until now. The journey to the Titan was madness. The datapad guided them north, through charred forests and smoldering villages, into the mountain ranges that cut Carvos's continent in two. Velari patrols prowled every pass. Drones scanned the skies. Marcus led them like a ghost, every step precise, every movement calculated. He taught them to mask their heat signatures with crystal dust, to jam drone sensors with crude pulse emitters, to move only when the twin suns cast long shadows. Even so, they lost people. A gunship spotted them crossing a river. Plasma fire turned the water to steam. Marcus and Sarai barely dragged the survivors into the shallows before detonating a charge that brought half a cliff crashing down on the hunters. Each loss weighed heavy, but each victory hardened them. The Carvosi learned fast.serai. Once a priestess of peace, now wielded the plasma pistol with deadly precision. Her voice, once for healing, became the command that steadied rebels when fear gnawed at their hearts. And Marcus felt something stirring in him he thought long dead. Purpose. At last, after weeks of running, they reached the mountain. The path ended at a sheer wall of black stone, scarred by ancient fire. Marcus pressed his hand against it. The datapad flickered, and with a grinding roar, hidden doors split the cliffside open. Cold air rushed out, stale with centuries. The Carvosi gasped as the shadows parted to reveal a cavern unlike any they had seen. Towering walls of steel, cables thick as tree trunks, and in the center, the Vanguard. Asterisk, she rested like a fallen beast, her hull scarred, her weapons silent, but her presence undeniable. Even in ruin, she radiated power. Sarai whispered, "It is terrifying." Marcus's chest tightened. She was built to terrify. They stepped inside. The ship's corridors were dark, lined with the bones of her crew-silent guardians of forgotten war. The Carvosi bowed their heads in respect. Marcus walked among them like a ghost walking home. Finally, they reached the bridge. Its great windows looked out over the cavern, dust and shadows swirling. Marcus moved to the command console, fingers trembling. He pressed a sequence only he remembered. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a low hum filled the air. Lights flickered to life across the bridge. Systems groaned awake after centuries. Of slumber. The Vanguard stirred. The rebels gasped, shielding their eyes from the sudden glow. Sarai stepped closer, her silver gaze fixed on Marcus. You are bringing a god back to life." Marcus shook his head. His face was grim, but there was fire in his eyes. Not a god, a weapon. The Titan's awakening did not go unnoticed. Far above, in orbit, the Velari fleet detected the surge of power deep beneath the mountains. Their commanders studied the readings, disbelief turning to fury. Impossible, one hissed. That ship was destroyed, but the data was undeniable. A human dreadnought lived beneath Carvos. The Dominion would not allow such a relic to rise again. Within hours, orders spread through the fleet. Armies would converge on the mountain. Gunships, walkers, artillery, all to crush whatever stirred. In the dark, the Velari commander's words echoed across their channels. Burn the mountain. Leave nothing standing. On the Vanguard's bridge, Marcus studied the flickering systems. Life support was weak. Engines crippled. Weapons offline. The ship was a corpse given breath, not life, but its heart still beat. The reactor core hummed. with power, enough to bring her back, if given time. Marcus turned to the rebels, to Sarai, to the hollow-eyed survivors who had followed him this far. She can't fight yet, but she will. We need to hold the mountain until then. Sarai's voice was steady, even as fear shadowed her eyes. How long? Days, maybe less. And the Dominion? He looked out at the cavern walls, as if he could see through them, up into the skies where the enemy gathered. They'll be here in hours. The cavern fell silent. The rebels exchanged fearful glances. To stand against Velari legions, with nothing but scavenged weapons and fading strength, was suicide. But Sarai stepped forward, her silver eyes burning with something more than fear. Then we hold, she said. Not for days, not for hours, for as long as we must. Until your Titan wakes. The others looked at her, then at Marcus, and slowly, one by one, they nodded that Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. For the first time in years, he wasn't just fighting to survive. He wasn't running. He was standing guard, and when the Velari came, they would break themselves on this mountain. The first tremors shook the cavern as orbital fire began to fall. Dust rained from the ceiling. The ground quaked with the approach of engines. The mountain was about to become a battlefield. Marcus gripped the console, his voice low, fierce. Wake up, old girl. We're gonna need you. The Vanguard systems flickered one by one, like the first breaths of a giant. Outside, the Velari army closed in. Asterisk siege of the mountain. The ground shook with the rhythm of marching armies. From the cliffs above the cavern mouth, Marcus and Sarai saw the first wave of Velari forces. Black-armored infantry moved in endless rows, their glassy helmets reflecting the glow of burning skies. Behind them came walkers' towering machines, with legs like blades, their cannons swiveling hungrily toward the mountain. And above, sleek gunships circled, their engines screaming, their shadows cutting across the ridges. The Dominion had come to end this rebellion in a single strike. Marcus's voice cut through the fear of his rebels. Remember, don't meet them head-on. Hit and vanish. Bleed them, slow them, stall them. Sarai's voice followed, steadier, carrying farther. For every moment we hold, the Titan wakes. Every breath we steal is another that she will take for us. The rebels gripped their crude weapons tighter, nodding. The Velari began their assault. First shells crashed against the mountain's outer cliffs, exploding in gouts of plasma. Rock shattered, raining shards down the slopes. Infantry advanced in disciplined lines, their rifles cutting the air with streaks of light. But the rebels were waiting. Asterisk, hidden crystal mines wired with Marcus's human ingenuity, detonated beneath the first wave, shredding armored troops in bursts of blue fire. From the ridges, Carvosi archers loosed shafts, tipped with explosive shards. Each impact a flash of light and shrapnel dot. Then the shadows moved. Rebels darted from caves and cracks, striking like ghosts. A walker staggered as a crystal charge detonated on its joint, sending the machine toppling down the slope. Gunships swooped to retaliate, only to be blinded by clouds of crystal dust that scrambled their sensors. The Velari were used to crushing resistance with fear. They were not used to prey that struck back. Inside the Vanguard, the ship groaned as power surged through her veins. Asterisk Marcus ran between consoles, coaxing life into dead systems. Displays flickered. Hull diagnostics spat out endless lists of damage. Entire weapon arrays were fried, shield generators cracked, engines offline. But slowly, piece by piece, she stirred. Reactors stabilizing, Marcus muttered, half to himself. Auxiliary power online. That's it, girl. Breathe for me. Sarai burst onto the bridge, her hair streaked with ash, her silver eyes burning. We're holding them, but they're pressing harder. How much longer? Marcus's fingers flew across the console. She's waking, but weapons are still. Cold. I can maybe get point defense turrets online, nothing more yet. Then it must be enough, Sarai said, breathless. A distant rumble shook the cavern. Dust fell from the ceiling. Marcus cursed. They've brought heavy artillery. They'll level the mountain before she's ready. Sarai grabbed his arm. Then stop them, however you must. Outside, the Velari walkers advanced, their seismic cannons pounding the mountainside. Whole ridges cracked and fell, sending rebels scattering. Gunships poured fire into cave mouths, silencing screams with bursts of plasma. The rebels were breaking. Then, for the first time in centuries, the vanguard spoke. Hidden hatches in the cliffside opened, and automated turrets unfolded. Their barrels spun, glowing with renewed power. A storm of fire erupted, tearing into the advancing Velari. Infantry scattered. A gunship exploded mid-air, spiraling into the lines below. The mountain roared with defiance. The rebels froze, staring as the ancient human warship came alive around them. Cheers rose, wild and desperate. The Velari, disciplined but shaken, pulled back under the sudden hail of fire. For the first time in generations, they faced something they could not easily crush. On the Velari command ship, orbiting high above, the Dominion overseer watched the battle unfold. His cold black eyes narrowed as reports poured in. A human warship, he hissed. Impossible. This world was nothing. How did they find one here? His aide trembled. Shall we retreat? The overseer's glare silenced him. No, we will erase it. Call in the orbital bombardment. The aide hesitated. But, overseer, our forces are still on the mountain. They are expendable. The ship is not. Burn it. Burn everything. On the Vanguard's bridge, Marcus froze as alarms blared. The ship's half-dead sensors picked up the signatures immediately. Massive energy. Buildups in orbit. His blood went cold. Orbital strike incoming, he said. They're going to vaporize the mountain. Sarai's face paled. Then all. This was just buying us a grave, Marcus finished grimly. The rebels outside cheered as the Velari pulled back, thinking they had won a small victory. None of them knew the fire about to fall from the heavens. Sarai turned to Marcus, desperate. There must be a way. Your ship, it can stop them? Marcus's jaw clenched. Not yet. Weapons are cold. Shields are offline. If that strike lands, we're done. The hum of the Vanguard's reactor filled the silence, low and steady, like the heartbeat of a giant struggling to rise. And then, against all odds, one console lit green. Marcus's eyes widened. Wait, the spinal lance. What is it? Sarai asked. Marcus turned, his scarred face lit by the glow of a weapon. Earth had once used to split fleets in half. Her main gun, he whispered. It's online. The mountain shook again, not from enemy fire this time, but from the awakening growl of a titan. Part 4 ends with a cliffhanger. Orbital bombardment incoming. But the Vanguard's main weapon, a dreadnought-class spinal lance, has just come. Online, the Lance of Earth, the countdown had begun. In orbit, Velari warships aligned their cannons. Energy built into blazing spheres, bright enough to turn night into day. The order was simple. Obliterate the mountain. Obliterate the warship. Obliterate everything. On the Vanguard's bridge, Marcus stood over the console, hands shaking as the readouts glowed green. One weapon. One chance. The spinal lance, he said, breath ragged. It's online, but only for a single shot. After that, the reactor will need hours to recover. Sarai's silver eyes burned. Then make that shot count. The Velari fleet unleashed their fire. From orbit, beams of plasma and kinetic warheads screamed down toward Carvos, streaks of light burning the sky. The mountain shook under the first impacts, stone cracking, fire blooming across the ridges. The rebels screamed as the ground split beneath their feet. Entire battalions were vaporized in the bombardment, Velari and Carvosi alike. Marcus slammed his hand on the firing console. "Come on, old girl, wake up." The bridge lit white. With a thunderous roar that shook the cavern, the vanguard's spinal lance fired. A beam of pure energy, wide as a river, tore through the mountain's concealed cannon port and into the heavens. It punched through the clouds like a sword through flesh, cutting straight into the heart of the Velari fleet. In orbit, the Dominion overseer had just enough time to turn before the beam struck. The warship at the fleet's center, Arbiter-class battleship, shattered under the impact, its shields collapsing, hull splitting open in a blaze of fire. Debris tore through the formation, smashing gunships, rending smaller escorts in half. Velari channels filled with screams. Chaos rippled through their disciplined lines. And below, on Carvos, every eye turned skyward as the impossible unfolded. A single shot. A single defiant cry from Earth's forgotten titan. One ship had annihilated a fleet's heart. The rebels roared. Their cheers echoed off the cavern walls, wild, disbelieving. The Velari troops on the mountain faltered, their black helmets turning. Skyward as fire rained from their own broken fleet, Sarai's voice rose above the chaos, fierce and unyielding. "Do you see? They are not gods. They bleed. They fall." The Carvosi charged, driving the shaken Velari back down the slopes. But Marcus wasn't cheering. He stared at the console, at the reactor readouts glowing red. Systems failing. Weapons still offline. Shields still dead. "One shot," he muttered. "That's all we had." Sarai turned to him, still burning with triumph. "But it was enough. You shattered them." Marcus's gaze was grim. "No, I hurt them. And now they'll come with everything they have." He was right above Carvos. The shattered Velari fleet reeled, but it did not break. Already new ships moved into formation, commanders barking orders to restore control. Reinforcements were called from nearby systems. The Dominion had underestimated Carvos. They would not make that mistake again. The overseer, burned and bleeding from the blast, leaned on his command chair, his voice a hiss of venom. "Signal the fleet. All forces converge. If this world harbors a human warship, then this world will die screaming." That night, the mountain burned with both victory and grief. The rebels celebrated their impossible triumph, singing broken songs of hope. For the first time, they believed the Dominion could be beaten. But Marcus sat apart, staring at the dark console, knowing the truth. The vanguard was still crippled. Her one great weapon had fired, but the rest of her systems were shadows of what they once were. Against the full might of the Velari Dominion, she was still a ghost. Sarai found him there, his scarred face lit by the faint hum of failing lights. "You gave them hope," she said softly. "I gave them a death sentence," Marcus replied. His voice was low, bitter. "The Dominion doesn't forgive. They'll burn this planet to its core." "Then let them come," Sarai said. "We will fight, and we will die if we must, but not kneeling." Marcus looked at her, at the fire in her eyes, and for a moment the weight on his chest lifted. Maybe that was enough. But hope was fragile. 2 days later, as the rebels rebuilt defenses and the vanguard systems groaned in recovery, a message cut through the static. Velari broadcasts sent across the planet, a voice cold and cruel. "People of Carvos, surrender the human and his warship, or your children will burn in the cleansing fires of the Dominion." And then came the images. Villages far to the south, already burning. Carvosi chained, dragged into transports. Children screaming as plasma. Fire consumed their homes. Sarai fell to her knees, her silver eyes wet with tears. "They are punishing the innocent," she whispered. Marcus's fists clenched, nails biting his palms. His old scars burned. He had seen this before. Colony after colony, planet after planet. This was how the Velari always won, not through strength alone, through cruelty, through fear. And once again, it was happening right in front of him. But this time he wasn't alone. He looked at Sarai, at the rebels, at the half-dead warship still struggling to rise. "No more running," Marcus said. His voice was low, steady. "We finish this, one way or another." That night, he stood before the rebels, his voice echoing through the cavern. "The Velari are bringing their whole fleet. When they arrive, we won't just be fighting for Carvos. We'll be fighting for every world they've taken, for every voice they've silenced. We're going to show them something they've never seen before. Humans don't yield. We don't kneel. We fight. And when they come, we'll give them nothing but annihilation." The rebels roared, their voices shaking the cavern walls. And deep within the mountain, the Vanguard's reactor pulsed like the heartbeat of a waking giant. When giants wake, the skies over Carvos turned black. Velari reinforcements arrived in force, dozens of cruisers, battleships, and carriers, their hulls gleaming obsidian under the twin suns. They blotted out the heavens, a swarm of death so vast the ground itself seemed to tremble. From orbit, fire rained down. Forests turned to ash, rivers boiled. Cities vanished in storms of plasma. The Dominion was no longer here to conquer. It was here to erase. And yet, in the heart of the mountain, the Vanguard stirred. Marcus stalked the bridge, exhaustion written in every line of his face. Systems flickered around him, half dead, half awake. The spinal lance was charging again, but shields remained down. Weapons arrays were limping online. Engines barely functional. "She's not ready," he muttered. Serai stood beside him, silver eyes steady despite the thunder outside. "Neither are we, but we fight anyway." Marcus looked at her, saw no fear in her gaze, only resolve, and something inside him steadied. "Then let's wake the giant." The Velari ground assault struck first. Walkers and infantry swarmed up. The cliffs, pouring fire into every crevice. Gunships strafed the ridges, burning away cover. The rebels fought like wolves in the dark, darting, striking, vanishing, but their numbers thinned with every minute. Sarai stood at the front lines, her plasma pistol cutting down troopers, her voice rising like a battle hymn. For every song they silence, another will rise. The rebels roared with her, their defiance echoing through smoke and fire. But even as they fought, they knew it was only a matter of time. The Dominion's true power waited above. On the Velari flagship, Overseer Draxus watched with cold fury. His black glass armor gleamed, his voice a hiss of contempt. "End this farce? Prepare the cleansing strike." His ships shifted into formation. Thousands of guns aligned, their targets locked, not just on the mountain, but on the world itself. Dominion would not merely crush rebellion. It would turn Carvos into an example. Deep in the mountain, alarms blared. Marcus's consoles screamed warnings. Overcharge detected. The ship's computer crackled, voice fractured by centuries of decay. Orbital strike imminent. Marcus's blood went cold. "They're not just targeting us," he said. "They're going to glass the whole planet." Sarai's breath caught. "All of Carvos." Marcus slammed a fist on the console. "Not if we fire first." The Vanguard shuddered as her spinal lance charged, drawing power from every circuit, every line. Lights dimmed. Metal groaned. The reactor screamed like a beast in chains. Marcus gripped the firing controls, sweat running down his brow. On, old girl, one more time. Through the cavern roof, the mountain split as ancient hatches yawned open. The warship's weapon, a colossal cannon running the length of her spine, rose toward the heavens, glowing with fury. Vel ARI sensors lit up. Alarms screamed across the fleet. Human weapon online. Targeting array locked on us. Shields. Can't track that output. Marcus fired dot. The mountain erupted in light. The spinal lance roared into the skies. A beam of searing energy so bright it split the clouds apart. It tore through the Velari formation, carving ships into burning. Halves. Cruisers cracked open like eggshells. Carriers exploded in cascades of fire. For the second time, the Velari fleet screamed in chaos. But the shot cost the Vanguard everything. The lights flickered. Consoles went dark. The reactor sagged into critical overload warnings. Marcus stared. At the readouts, we can't fire again. She'll tear herself apart. Sarai grabbed his arm. Then we fight with what remains. And so they did. The Vanguard's secondary weapons coughed to life. Point defense turrets spat streams of fire, shredding drop pods before they reached the ground. Crude railguns pounded walkers into twisted metal. Even half dead, the Titan struck harder than anything the Dominion had faced here. The rebels surged with renewed fury, fighting under the shadow of a god reborn. For hours, the mountain held, but the Velari were endless. For every ship destroyed, 2 more loomed in orbit. For every battalion shattered, reinforcements poured from carriers. Slowly, inexorably, the Dominion pressed closer. The mountain's defenses cracked. Rebels fell. The Vanguard's guns grew silent, one by one, their barrels glowing red with exhaustion. And at last, the Velari flagship descended. It was a monster of obsidian and flame, blotting out the suns as it hovered over the mountain. Cannons larger than villages locked onto the cavern mouth. Inside, Overseer Draxus stood tall, his voice echoing across channels, broadcast for all to hear. Behold the fate of defiance. Behold the futility of resistance. This world dies today. On the bridge, Sarai's face went pale. We cannot stop that? Marcus stared at the towering flagship. His jaw clenched. His mind raced. No weapons left. No shields. No chance. And then his eyes fell on the reactor readouts critical, unstable, barely contained. A terrible thought came to him. Maybe? Just maybe? He looked at Sarai. Get them out. Get everyone out. Her silver eyes widened. What are you doing? Marcus's voice was quiet, resolute. Finishing it. Annihilation. The mountain burned. The Lari cannons poured fire into its cliffs, tearing stone apart, vaporizing steel. The ground quaked with every impact. Above, the flagship hovered like a black sun, blotting out hope itself. Inside, alarms screamed. Consoles sparked. Fires spread across the Vanguard's dying bridge. Marcus sat in the command chair, face lit by red warning lights, eyes fixed on the reactor's unstable core. Every reading screamed imminent collapse. Every second, the Titan's heart grew hotter, wilder, closer to rupture. He knew what had to be done. Sarai. His voice cut through the chaos. Get them out. All of them. The alien princess turned rebel, spun toward him, her silver eyes wet with fire and tears. No, you cannot ask me to. You wanted freedom for your people? Marcus snapped. Then give them a chance to live it. This is the only way. Around them, the few surviving rebels froze, realizing what he meant. The reactor. The Titan. A weapon beyond imagining. Sarai's hands trembled. If you detonate, you die. Marcus gave a weary smile, broken but proud. I'm already dead. I just want to make it mean something. Outside, Velari forces closed in. The Overseer's voice thundered from the flagship, his words carried across every channel. Rebel scum, human vermin, witness your end. The flagship's main cannon began to glow, brighter and brighter, its power dwarfing the sun's. Marcus stood, shoulders heavy, and pressed a sequence only a human would know. The reactor's locks disengaged. The Vanguard groaned, her heart unchained, her fury unleashed. The mountain shook as ancient systems realigned. Warning klaxons wailed in voices that hadn't been heard for centuries. Critical overload. Evacuation recommended. Sarai grabbed Marcus's arm, desperation breaking through her resolve. "Come with us," she pleaded. "We can find another." "Way," Marcus shook his head, his voice low, almost gentle. "You told me once your people sing their dead to the stars." Her breath caught. "Sing for me." With that, he shoved her toward the escape lifts, his strength shocking for a man. So warm. Rebels seized her arms, dragging her back as she screamed his name. The last thing she saw before the door sealed was Marcus standing tall in the firelit bridge, one hand on the console, the other raised in farewell. The flagship's cannon reached. Full charge. The Dominion prepared to erase a world. But the Vanguard fired first, not with her lance, not with her guns. With her very heart. The reactor detonated. The explosion split the skies. A star was born in the heart of the mountain. White and furious, swallowing everything around it. The shockwave obliterated the Velari flagship, tearing it apart in a single blinding instant. Its wreckage burned in the heavens like falling comets. The fleet followed, hundreds of ships ripped to pieces, their armor peeling like paper before the storm. Orbit shattered. The skies became fire. On the ground, rebels and civilians watched in awe as the impossible unfolded. The Dominion, unbreakable, eternal, invincible, was annihilated in a single human act of defiance. Silence followed. Where the mountain once stood was a vast crater, still glowing, its edges fused into glass. Nothing remained of the Titan's hull, only shards of molten steel buried deep in the earth. The Valere were gone. The world was scarred. But Carvo still lived. And for the first time in living memory, it was free. Days later, survivors gathered at the edge of the crater. Sarai stood among them, her face pale, her eyes hollow from grief. She carried no crown, no title, only the weight of memory. The rebels looked to her now, not as a princess, but as the voice of a future Marcus had bought with his life. She stepped forward, her voice breaking, yet strong enough to carry across the crowd. This world was saved not by power, not by fear, but by sacrifice. A man from a broken world gave us freedom. He gave us hope, and he gave us a choice. Her silver eyes lifted to the stars, glimmering above the smoke. We will not waste it. And then, softly, she began to sing. It was not in Velari, nor in the language of humans. It was something between a new song, born of two peoples, carried by voices trembling yet strong. They sang Marcus to the stars, and the galaxy listened. But far away, beyond known systems, other humans heard too. Deep space outposts scattered. Colonies, forgotten fleets. The message spread like wildfire. A single human had stood against an empire. And and for the first time in centuries, humanity stirred. The galaxy expected Earth to yield. Instead, it had witnessed annihilation. And humanity was not done yet.